And welcome back to the Bearded Baptists, the podcast where we discuss everything relating to politics, some politics, the current social climate, ethics, and how these things relate to our lives as men, how we navigate these things from a biblical perspective and a biblical worldview. I'm Darren. We've got John's back again. We brought him back. Gene's here.
2 weeks in a row, right?
Yeah, that's right. And we're wearing the same clothes.
Shh, don't shatter the illusion.
Okay, sorry. Anyway.
They would have never known.
Now.
Welcome we should back. Just wear that shirt. We still
if you guys would toe the line and like
this
represent
was a fringe benefit.
Yeah, I thought
of being part of this.
Even volunteers at the church get like free T-shirts, man. What's going on?
Yeah, hey, I'm not Big Eva, so you're not getting a T-shirt for everything that we do here.
We wear that though every week. Then no one knows if we watched it or not.
You're right. We can like record 10 episodes and make it look like we labored. But we appreciate everybody for being here. Please check us out. Check out our other. Speaking of this T-shirt, if you would like to get something like this, if you're watching this, if you're listening to it, just imagine a well-dressed man with a perfectly coiffed beard wearing a black T-shirt with our Bearded Baptist logo on it.
Basically looks like none of us.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to break the illusion here, but you can go to sovereignjoy.org, order a T-shirt for yourself. We've got T-shirts, we've got sweatshirts for if you're in a cold climate, or if you just want to be ready and prepared. You can get those. We've got our Redeeming the Family shirts, and you can even get a Providence Church T-shirt on there also. I might be sporting one of those in one of the future episodes. So you can go there, but not just to go there to buy merch. You can find out more about Sovereign Joy and our ministries. You can find more about Redeeming the Family. We have resources there for families that address a lot of the issues that we face today. That kind of give you some helps in navigating those things. If you want to drop us a line, we have email at beardguys@sovereignjoy.org. You can tell us, you love the shirts, you don't like the shirts. Maybe you have a suggestion for a show, a topic you'd like to hear us drone on about. You can let us know about that as well. We have gotten some feedback from an anonymous Gene F who said we're awesome. I'm going to keep talking about that until we get another one. So send us one.
Yeah, they better do it quick. I'm tired of hearing
Well, we
about
did
it.
get a text message from our brother that liked a previous episode and found it enormously helpful for him. So we are getting word of mouth and text messages, but please email.
That does help.
Email and comments would be nice to see.
More than just us or listen to the show. So, but no, like we really want to discuss things that are pertinent to what you're dealing with. So let us know about that. If you want to even donate to Sovereign Joy, you like what we're doing, not just this, but we have some other things planned, some other podcasts planned. You can do that there as well. Hopefully we can get a camera that stops cutting out. So you guys have noticed that I did change the cord. I changed the power cord. So we're going to see. We'll give this episode a test run. I mean, we got these new digs here, right? This new our design team. Let's give a kudos to our design team. Wow. And the production team. How about that?
They were awesome.
Now the carpenters, the electricians that did all this work.
Yeah.
I was kind of in shock when I came in.
Yeah.
But it looks really, really good.
Yeah.
The brick, it looks nice.
We got our brick back here. We got our guy up here. What else? We got our humidor back here. Thanks to that was another donation by Gene F. This guy is our top fan.
He's sinking a lot of time and money into this. I'm just letting you know.
Who's that? Gene F.
That's right.
Or our production team?
Both.
Okay. All right. Because right now I'm thinking Gene F.'s donation is very small. So I'm just saying that, but he's gotten
a couple of shout outs, so he's pretty much our only sponsor right now. So
besides Sovereign Joy and the production team. So, but we got this lovely, maybe we have a giveaway of some signed copies of this portrait back here. I'm not sure. Is this like I can't tell if we're looking at the Unabomber or Grizzly
I think that's
Adams.
Gene F.
That might be Gene F. But yeah, that's fantastic. So maybe we give away some copies of that. There's some other little things here. Right now. We've got our Godzilla here. He's protecting us. But
it's a good idea, though. Maybe we should give away a shirt.
Oh yeah.
I've got one, Gene.
Well, we'll have to come up with something.
You want this one?
Just put it on the notes. We'll have to discuss this.
We need something. Maybe
to encourage comments, to encourage suggestions, to encourage something.
Sure,
find something all of us can sign.
Yeah, we need to bribe people.
Yeah,
can we bribe people to doing this?
Well, I was gonna say a cigar, maybe, but that could be probably frowned upon. Who knows?
Whatever. All right, let's get to it.
Yeah. So, I turned my volume down on my sound effects.
Pish posh.
Okay. Oh. All right. So last episode, I don't think there's, since we're recording this on the same night, there's nothing new culturally that's happened in the last hour. So there's nothing great to talk about. Although we did have we were talking off camera, off microphone, that Miller and Coors missed a huge opportunity to jump in and be the opposite of the woke, and they could have had, just whatever represents America, represents masculinity. Chuck Norris. If that's still a thing, so many younger people are like, Chuck who? But Chuck will hear you question that.
I'll just stand by my comment. They're all woke. They're all in it. They all have
an
agenda.
Yeah, but okay.
I don't know. That's how it feels.
Look at Jeremy's.
Yeah.
This brand. Jeremy's chocolate, Jeremy's razors. Jeremy's chocolate was going crazy.
That just proves that it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about some agenda. It's about checking boxes, about virtue signaling or whatever it is to whoever these people are. Probably the politicians that make the tax laws.
But they went
and
the opposite way. They went when Hershey's did all that, but it was very profitable for them. So do you think that was also just more of a stunt to make the money from Hershey's?
No, I mean, I think legitimately they took that angle, but that's a small business. That's just a small business opportunity. I'm talking about major corporations that have influence in government. They've got lobbyists and all that stuff. They're all the same. They're all connected.
Yeah.
It's all, it's I guess I'm a
not to get too conspiratorial
hat guy.
Yeah, not to get too conspiratorial, but if you go on the World Economic Forum, they kind of lay out their case. It's called stakeholder capitalism.
Wow.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly.
And John's taking this to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I know.
No,
so
I know
exactly
I'm familiar with it.
that's exactly what they're practicing now. They're trying to virtue signal to make sure that they stay in favor and power and reflect the views of the community.
But they're not, though.
But they're not. But they're proponing the values of whatever political system.
It's whatever the elites decide are going to be the values of the society. Well, it's not really what our values are. But
pish posh.
Anyway, I think what needs to happen then is if the Christian community truly did take a stand and voted with their purses and pocketbooks, the wallets, and to as much as possible cut from all those things.
Yeah,
that's the only way you're going to send any kind of signal.
It's not a boycott. It's more of a boycott because we have so many options now that you don't need to get the name brand. You can do the off brand or the Christian brand. You can put your dollars and your values into this other resource and let the other stuff just kind of.
So all the Christians should buy Coors beer.
I'm not going to go on record.
No, I'm kidding.
But no, I think we just have to, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, but we have to start thinking of an alternative economy. How do we put forth our answer? Not just be anti this, but here is the answer.
Yeah.
Here is what we're about, and it goes into returning to the old ways.
But a lot of the Christian community is abandoning the world in a way, right? I mean, we've talked about this before. This idea, this. Be off in your little church world, and we're going to be separate from. So they're not making an impact. We're not making an impact. We're not trying to take this on. Why aren't we setting the the tone? Why aren't we setting the agenda instead of just escaping from?
Well, not to get ahead
their agenda.
I know when we were breaking down the season, we kind of talked about eschatology, and that I think when we get into season 2, our eschatology is really going to kind of provide the backdrop for a lot of these things. I don't want to give too much away, but really, if you're listening and you've never heard that word, that's just your view on the end times. Maybe spend a little time thinking through there. Go through the Puritans, go through church fathers, go through other. There are guys like R.C. Sproul that land on one side, Vodi Bachum's on one side, and John MacArthur's on another side. So, there are faithful guys that have disagreed on their eschatology. Sure. But, start thinking about that.
Yeah. And if you've been in church for a while and you're not familiar with that word, maybe you need to find a new church. Anyway, let's get into, when we talk about this stuff, you're right. We're in this, let's go to our bubble. Let's stay in our bubble.
Isolation.
Instead of, okay, I'm going to start a beer company and I'm going to run that beer company to the glory of God. Where's my crickets button? It's not on this one, but there is a thing that does crickets.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, that's it. That's something that's kind of, oh my goodness. Can I have a brewery and be, do that to the glory of God? Look, I don't want to get into that, but whether it's a brewery, whether it's a magazine store, or you name it, right? If I'm a mechanic, I'm going to do that to God's glory. And so then also as Christians, when I need my plumbing fixed for something, I'm calling my buddy Joe, who has his plumbing company, who's a Christ follower, and I'm going to give my business to him. Yeah. So those are ways that we speak with our money that we don't have to patronize these other establishments.
Yeah. So it goes back to this, talking about kind of selling out to big government, becoming dependent, that we don't even realize how dependent we are and how much of a slave in a way we are to these big corporations. We want the convenience, so we sell out to it. So how do you fix that, right? A lot of people will think about Buy American. That's one way potentially, because most of these big corporations are that way because they're getting a lot of cheap products, which kind of goes contrary to the old paths too, right? Yeah, it's disposable stuff. It's quick, easy, cheap, and it doesn't last, right? It can't be passed down for generations. We've talked about this before. Like I sometimes I wait a long time. See, Darren's guilty of this, so I'm going to call him out a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Look at this.
Right? Darren sometimes wants to get things fast and will get a cheaper thing. And that's fine. I do it sometimes, but there is part of me that really likes the idea of high quality. I'd rather save up money and painstakingly pick something that I think could last a long time, that could be, become almost an heirloom type of, whether it be a piece of furniture or a gun or something like that could be passed down to my kids and stuff like that. And so I really appreciate that. I don't know if it's nostalgia or what it is, but I have my great-grandfather's shotgun in the safe. I've got my grandfather's guns in the safe. Multiple generations have hunted deer with those guns, and I think it's cool stuff.
Are you saying then my Palmetto Arms upper is not going to last to my children? So what you're?
No, it probably will, but
okay.
All right. Whatever.
Is it my?
If it doesn't get taken away from you,
is it my cob pipe? I shouldn't mention that because it is off the record, but but then it's also not finished. But it's my cob pipe.
Well, anyway, when I started calling you out, I lost track of where we were going with this. But the big companies. So how do you
becoming a regular thing?
Start looking at. Where can you deviate from the Walmarts and the Amazons, right?
Right.
How can we be supporting our local communities? No, not just Buy American, but buy local farms, healthier food, farm raised eggs, or free range chickens, grass fed cattle. It's healthier. You're supporting local farms so they don't sell out to make a buck to build another Walmart.
Yeah.
In the field, right? And ideally, the Christian run small local businesses and start really building up community, because I think that's one thing of the old past that we've really abandoned. No sense of community.
Sure.
No respect for generations. We're not taking care of our elders. Ship them off to a home.
Yeah.
Right. It's so common.
Yeah.
Because, and almost let the government take care of them, right? Medicaid or Medicare or whatever will pay for them, and Social Security or whatever, and I don't have to deal with it.
One thing that sometimes gets brought up is economically, for a lot of families to shop at Walmart is right. I can go there and get or a Costco or something. Not that I think Costco is on the same level. They're higher volume, but they could be better quality. But this search for the cheapest at the same time, especially in food, we see there being the sacrifice of nutrition. These things that are mechanically engineered, or genetically engineered, just the overproduction to where you've basically stripped something of most of its nutritional value when it's compared with something. We've talked about Joel Salatin, and with his farming techniques, and the comparisons when they do tests on one of his eggs compared to a commercially farmed egg. So I think what we're seeing though is, again, because the short term is I can get this food really cheap, we're not seeing that the long term is I'm not healthy. I'm, first of all, I'm not getting the nutrition I need. So now then I'm pumping full of vitamins or this and that and supplements.
The pharmaceutical companies will come along and give you a solution.
They'll give me a pill, and next thing you know, that pill next year I'm going to need a different pill to counteract that pill, and so you're just on a cocktail of medicines. So this is something that is really an epidemic in our country. Where you see the rise, like, look, I'm not ancient. I'm 50, but I don't remember when I was a kid, kids with all these dietary allergies, the gluten, the dairy, all these things that are just unbelievable that nowadays we have. And then you hear about people that, well, I went to Italy and I could eat their bread. I could eat their pasta because they weren't using this hyper processed garbage that we're getting at our grocery stores. They're using high quality things from
so this move to
field.
Cheap and convenient has infiltrated every aspect of our lives. So everything that we consume, from the food, the clothes, the consumer products, whatever, it's all in some way tainted by this, and largely run by companies that have these woke agendas and all this other stuff. So again, back to some of the solutions, right? Shop local, or even start moving back to look at what is this wave? Move back to the land, or
get back to the land,
get back to the land kind of movement, and it is getting more and more popular. People are embracing that, but the idea, get some land, move out in the country a little bit. Start a garden, do what you can with what you have. I mean, there's little things that you can do no matter what your circumstances are, and I think beyond the food or the lack of dependence on the big companies, you also, I think there's really a spiritual element there, a peace. A lot of people garden. I'm not a great gardener or love it that much, but working the land, planting stuff and tending to the garden, there's a lot of relaxation, getting back to nature, really appreciation of God's creation and the miracle of growth and life, right? take the time to really see that. So it comes back to like, it takes time to do all these things.
True.
And maybe we need to do that, right? What are your priorities? You're running around so fast, going from here to there. You know, it's just flashing lights and busyness. And then our relaxation, so to speak, is sitting down watching the same garbage on the television, just bombard or on a device of some sort, bombarding us with this stuff, rather than getting out to nature, hunting, fishing, whatever you like, you know, these types of things, gardening. Yeah. So.
Yeah,
I went on a long rant there.
John, you had something queued up here?
No, I was just going to go back to the verse that was kind of precipitated this conversation, because we're in part 2. So hopefully you listen to part 1. But if not, what we're talking about is Jeremiah 6:16. This is what the Lord says: stand by the roadways and look, ask about the ancient paths, which is the way to what is good, and then take it and find rest for yourselves. But they protested, we won't. And so really what we're talking about with this, we're trying to lay forth the case to go back to what is good, God's design. And as you're living according to that design, as you're living according to that, you'll find rest for your souls. But it's important to recognize that Jeremiah is speaking to the people, and the people's response was, but we won't.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that's a lot of times that you can, I mean, it's the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can see something that is the correct way, is the right way, is a healthy way, is a profitable way. But if it's something that could be the long way, it's going to be avoided.
So I think that's, as we talk through solutions, because we want this to be a much more optimistic episode than the last one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important to remember that these changes can only be brought about through the Holy Spirit. God is going to lead you in those paths, and you have to submit when He brings up, this is the way that you're going to walk. Even if you're starting to entertain these thoughts, if you're starting to think about them, take one tangible step, and then God will start laying the next thing and the next thing. But again, that's between you and the Holy Spirit. But if you're not being obedient to the Spirit, if your natural inclination is to say, well, I like it better when you just talk about the problems, I don't want to do the solutions.
Yeah.
You're not going to move forward. You know what I mean?
We're good at that.
Yeah. and that's something like, this is a conversation that's kind of been, it's going to probably seem a bit comical, but I alluded to it in the last episode. I mean, you can kind of see the humidor back here, but Gene and I both enjoy cigars. We're working on John, maybe with that. But something also that we've kind of been picking up on, a hobby, pastime, I don't know, is pipe tobacco and smoking pipes. And influenced by, is it Aaron Harrelson?
Alan
Harrelson. Harrelson?
We're screwing it up.
Anyway,
the Pipe
we'll
Cottage.
get it right.
You should check him out.
It's the Pipe Cottage.
It's got an awesome accent.
He is straight out of Gone with the Wind, but very smart man, PhD, I think, in history.
Yeah.
Professor, but
Christian. He's
Christian
actually
guy.
thinking about going into full-time ministry. I saw in one of his... so I'm not exactly sure what that all
That's
involves.
That's what you do if you're on Fire for God, remember? We talked about that.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
right? But anyway, so one thing that he talks about that actually goes along with this is these old ways that smoking a pipe used to be something that we would see, right? I think back of Norman Rockwell, with his pipe and others, and even as a younger person walking down the street and catching a whiff of a pipe. And this is something that's kind of gone by the wayside in many ways. And one thing that the Pipe Cottage talks about is that this time is that the smoking of the pipe, in one of his recent videos, he said, was not something that is intrinsically important, but it was more about what that is symbolizing and the time that he's spending while he's doing it. So while you're doing this activity, again, we're not saying that to get back to old ways, you need to smoke cigars or smoke pipes. But this is what he is choosing to, in his day, slow down, disconnect from the world and the problems, to block those things out. And he uses this time to focus on what he says are the things that really, truly matter. That's his relationship with the Lord. Is he being a good disciple, a good servant? His relationship with his wife. Is he being a good husband? Is he treating her the way he should? And his relationship as a father to his children, his relationship as a son to his parents. And so he uses this time, this 45 minutes to an hour, to meditate and to think on these things. And this is kind of, in some ways, what we're talking about as far as slowing down. It can be something like this. If you're listening to this and you want to join us, we're more than welcome to have you. You can be part of our Brotherhood of the Leaf. If you want to smoke a cigar, smoke a pipe, and we'll sit around, we'll talk theology, or whatever else. But it's these things that are not fast food type of activities. One thing I had gotten into.
I just want to add that, because tobacco's definitely gotten, I don't want to say a bad rap, because maybe deservedly so. Tobacco companies have done a lot of stuff to, poison people,
sure,
right, and create addiction and all kinds of issues. So I think that you have to be really careful. But the reality is, pipes and cigars are not that addictive type of thing,
right?
Like they're not just carriers of nicotine and right? Having a cup of coffee in the morning, to me, it has caffeine, right? That's different than pounding 5-hour energy drinks all day, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And in the same way, smoking a pipe after dinner, reflecting on your day, is very different than smoking 2 packs a day or vaping, which has now become such a rage with all the youngsters and stuff.
Sure.
It's just feeding a fix,
right?
A nicotine fix, a drug addiction. That's not what we're promoting.
No, not at all. And we can get in, and there's other things to kind of get into, particular health things. Like, you don't inhale pipes or cigars like you do a cigarette.
Yeah.
Cigarette has 200 plus ingredients and carcinogens in it. If I take a cigar out of this humidor, it has one ingredient, a tobacco leaf. And it's something that's not produced. Well, some of those could be, because there are some cheaper packs in there, but most of them are something that's made by hand. It's hand rolled. It's been aged. It's something that's, again, been a process, waiting. Yeah. It's same as I don't have any right here, but if you think of a whiskey or a bourbon, something that was put away or wine in this cask for years before it's time to take it out and enjoy it. And kind of where we were going, part of this is finding that thing, finding something, incorporating something into your life. Because I know sometimes people can listen to things like this, and it seems like you have to make this huge 180 in your life. And okay, now I've got to grow my own food, and I've got to make my own clothes, and I need to homeschool my kids, and I need.
Yep.
This kind of change that we're talking about. First of all, that would be
some of that you do need to do.
Well, yeah.
But I don't know. It's big changes, but yeah, that's true.
It's find something. Okay, if it's maybe even when you were younger, there was something that you used to do that now you're like, wow, I have a heart.
I don't have time for
it.
That's always the excuse, right? I don't have time for it.
We talked about, you mentioned hunting and fishing. Well, that takes time. It takes, and there may not be the result you want at the end. There's the results are not guaranteed.
I think hunting's very therapeutic that way. Well, fishing too.
Sure. And I think, I've had
not instant gratification.
Not at all. And I've had amazing times in a tree stand or out in the woods with no deer in sight, but there was nature surrounding me. Leaves were falling. It was almost like out of a movie, right? There's like this mist in the forest, and
the
all
smells.
The rustle of a little wind causes these leaves to fall, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. I mean, do you think one thing I've always kind of, I don't know, postulated for a big word is our disconnect from nature, and the correlation between that and atheism and things like, you don't find a whole lot of farmers or these people that are atheists that just don't believe there's no God. All right, these people that are out in nature more. It seems like as we've urbanized and disconnected from creation, it's easier to deny the maker when everything you're in
is man-made.
Man-made.
Yeah.
So they take these people that are out there. You're out there in a forest, and your ears become attuned to sounds that you haven't heard before. You hear birds in ways that you don't hear it. You're up there and you hear the smallest little animal. That a squirrel will sound like a rhinoceros almost, right? Rustling through these leaves, and you're like, my goodness, what is that? And this little squirrel pops out, and you're, oh my goodness. But I think those kind of things are therapeutic, but they have a divine nature to them that
I agree.
God has put in us to be connected to.
I think everybody should find something like this. I was thinking, I mean, so you've mentioned a couple of them, but this is a simple one that everybody can do. Go for a walk. Take a nice walk with your wife or your child or whatever in nature, or by yourself for that matter. A time that's quiet to think. Make sure it's in nature though, walking. I mean, I guess could be people listening that live in downtown city. Find a park, find a place where, because I think it's different. You got to get away from the noises of construction and cars and and just the chaos of it all, and connect with the Creator. Connect just the peace. There's a peace there. That's why I love hunting so much, and I especially love bow hunting. Yeah. Just because it's a time of year, it's just a wonderful time of year in the fall. You get up in a tree, and most people think, what do you do up in a tree all day, sitting there or whatever. But it's a time to really disconnect with the hustle and bustle of the world.
Yeah. You're almost forced to.
Yeah, you're forced to.
Which can be, I mean, we've kind of run into some of this with camping and having limited, connectivity to things. And at first you're kind of like,
well, that's another one. Camp.
Get out. Like you don't need to glamp kind of like we do. We see plenty of people in campsites with a little tent and, some supplies.
It's relatively inexpensive
and
too to do.
They're having a great time. They're having a great time.
Yeah. In every one of these hobbies that we're talking about, you run into really good people, other people, like-minded people, have great conversations. I'm surprised, since we've investigated pipe smoking, almost every one of these pipe people are really, they're thinking people, and there's a large percentage of them that are Christian.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was very, very interesting to find. So.
Yeah. John, you've been rustling through.
No. I've been trying to think of a verse or something that would articulate that, because Proverbs is full of the diligent worker, right? The guy that does his work well and stand before kings. That the Proverbs talks about, really the idea of a craftsman. The guy that devotes himself to. Because I think that's what we're seeing in our culture is it went from a craftsman to a general worker to a master. Jack of all trades, but master of none. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, nobody knows what to do, right? Yeah. And so finding those, you were talking about Scotch, the guys that can take the skill and develop this over time and patience, and not only produce it, but then also have the theology to think about, like, man, I can think about the master that I learned this from and the guy that taught him, and how God ultimately gives us good and good gifts, and that just rolls up into worship. The guy that's the carpenter, the guy that builds the buildings or the cathedrals, not the McMansions like you were talking about, the cookie cutter stuff, but the guy that can actually put time and effort into building his own home and then building it with his hands, and take that time. Like there's something to that connects us back to God, because it can't be easy, because the soul doesn't like things that are easy. Proverbs 13:4 says, the slacker craves yet has nothing, but the diligent is fully satisfied. The one that is persistent, the one that's taking the time that's necessary to develop this, is fully satisfied. It's the one that has his hands out constantly and people are filling in. He's going, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it.
Yeah.
So
that's really, I haven't been, America is a relatively young country when we compare ourselves to our friends across the pond. Right. For our European listeners. So, hey, it's possible.
Who knows?
I've never been to Europe. But Nancy and I, we went out to Biltmore. And so you go through the Biltmore estate and you look at the carvings there and you think that, wow, these guys sat there with whatever tools they had at this time. And I know even Biltmore's not relatively that old compared to other things, but I'm just using this for point of reference of laborers that were skilled craftsmen that could take this stone and make this architecture that's all the same. That's the thing that amazes me, is that they can make these cornices and all these things, and it's the same. Like, it matches. I know, like, for me, after some time, I'd be like, well, whatever. It would start off nice and intricate, and it would slowly work its way to not quite as intricate. But these guys labored on these things. And you think about, right now, we're so much about production. And we look at the volume of our production to be the measure of, do we do a good job? Well, how much did I make? As opposed to, well, what if I labored on one thing my entire life, and my entire life I built one cathedral, or not even the whole thing, just part of it.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about just the mass production, my brain automatically went to the Lord of the Rings, because I'm working my way through the Silmarillion with the boys.
Oh, wow.
And
that's some good stuff there.
And it talks about the elves and men, and the elves devoted themselves to song and crafts and making beautiful ships. And yet, what's the picture of the orcs? Everything's just mass produced. Think about the movies. And we got the fire pits. They're destroying nature. They're just churning out stuff and stuff and stuff. And we miss something about God is a craftsman, that God takes his time, that God builds really beautiful things.
Yeah.
And we get to participate in that when we return to the old ways, when we take our time. It says something about God, not just that he makes stuff that's disposable, but he takes his time and energy. And it says something that he loves beauty, and he loves these things that are kind of, we don't really talk about in our culture anymore, which is the higher loves, things like art, things like poetry, things like music, things like hunting. There's things that take time. I know I'm repeating myself, but there's just something to that. But we're living like the orcs, where we're just churning stuff out and destroying everything. And
it takes effort. It takes diligence, discipline, right? We think about these great works of art, these paintings that they would labor on for years. First of all, just to attain that skill, to get to that skill level, to create this, but then also to sit there and work on something for that long. We don't do that now. We have computers that can, whip it up for us. And, I remember I was I actually went to commercial art school, and this was right around the dawn of digital printing. So I had to learn how to do all the typesetting and copy layout by hand. So if it was like for either print things like newspapers or things like that, we'd have to lay it out and have all that. And you did these cut ambers is what they called it, for where pictures would go. And you really had to, when you first start doing it, your work is kind of, sloppy. Right, the teacher's marking things off, and then as you go, you kind of pick up the feel of, how hard do I cut through this? How much pressure do I put on these pens and things like this? Well, now that's gone. Right now, man, I can have a whole magazine laid out in minutes. What used to take days to sit there and lay out and print and copy and proof and then run it again. And now,
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think some technology for sure has been a wonderful blessing and is a good thing in some of these areas. But there's also a lot that I think just leads to this consumerism and this disposable and it's fast and we're just going to, like you said, churn this stuff out and not build anything of real lasting quality, nothing of real beauty. It's imitation. It's made to look beautiful. It's like, instead of a beautiful solid wood table that could literally be there for generations, it's just particle board with a veneer to make it look like wood. I mean, this is probably, I think most people think I'm weird because I just put hardwood floors in my house, right? Actual hardwood floors.
Yeah.
Right? Where the trend now is that everything's synthetic. And it's true that it actually probably lasts in many ways longer because it's not biodegradable. It lasts in a landfill forever too, right? But it's the I wanted the natural warmth and beauty and longevity of real wood. Even if it gets scratched or whatever over time, you can refinish it, and it could be there hundreds of years. Everybody loves those old houses that were built, here in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
I mean, a really old house might go back to there's some maybe even into the 1700s, but 1800s would be in New England states and stuff like that, and like original hardwood floor, original floors in them, and wow, that's something that's a prized thing.
Yeah.
But then they put up houses like literally overnight around here that people were paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for. That seems like a good wind would just blow the thing down, right? There's nothing of quality, very little of quality.
Yeah. It's again that idea of what is it communicating about just how we see the world and how we see God. So if it's something that takes time, God is saying, hey, I build things that last. I build things that are sure and that are stable and that are good. Yeah. And the imitation from Satan is, well, I'm going to build fast, quick, and disposable.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hit you with the numbers and think about Ephesians 2:10 says that we are his workmanship. We're his masterpiece. And he's not only created us to reflect him, but he's made us to endure.
Yeah.
And he's prepared good works for us to walk in, things that will last beyond us, that will be left to our children and our children's children. And when we go back to the previous episode, when we forfeit that, when we're essentially paying for our slavery, we handing over our responsibilities, we're not being able to participate in that.
Yeah.
We're not being able to take up the cause and really going back to another episode, finding what we're really good at, how God has gifted us. Like all this stuff, it comes together, it builds upon itself. And so we have to have that mindset of not just segmenting everything, but God is communicating in and through us something for his glory. And that's what the old ways are about. That's what the ancient paths are about. Like, this works. This is not only for your good, but you'll find rest and it will last.
Yeah. You think about like, to tie this back to cigars again, but, you think about Cuba, right?
Yeah.
When you see Cuba and you see all these guys driving around in these like 50s Chevys and stuff, right? Because of the embargoes and whatnot. Well, could they be driving around in the cars that we're putting out now? Now, granted, they're not the best in the best condition, but
yeah, no.
When you look at,
I mean, they weren't computer operated back then, right? Carburetors and stuff, all mechanical parts,
simple,
a lot of steel built like tanks.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, take a look at your average car commercial. When I was a kid, my dad loved cars. But cars were like works of art. You think of it like a 50s or 60s cars. It wasn't just functional. It meant something. Now you look at your Teslas and they're all interchangeable. Yeah, what's the selling point? Look at the functionality of it. Look at the fact that it just does something when you just churn it out, but there's no art to it. There's no message. There's no beauty. There's nothing to it. It's just stripped and it's just got to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
You're saving the environment, but it looks miserable.
Yeah. The really sad thing, it made me think, you we were talking about disposable, and you're talking about God's creation, and think about people.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that we even treat people as disposable.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, we can talk about abortion, right? That's one element of it. But let's just talk what I said about putting our elderly in homes, right? Not taking responsibility to care for them, or, even what's the term? What's the right? Not Kevorkian, euthanizing.
Euthanizing them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's built into just a functional worldview that says if people aren't able to just serve a purpose, if they're not able to just keep the cogs going of the greater society, then they have no.
They're not productive. They're just a drain.
Right.
They're just a drain.
And there is this idea of atheists. We're just animals. We're just animals. We're no different than any other animal, right? We have no higher value. So I think it goes hand in hand with that, right? When you don't need it, when the animal's not productive anymore, right? The horse got a broken leg, can't pull the plow. You
get rid of it.
You shoot them.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Sure.
Feed them to the dogs, and we're treating people, like that.
But
man,
I mean, just thinking about like the craftsmen and things that have value. I was watching a video recently of like the pizza places that kind of like started in New York, and a lot of them are still using like ovens and stuff from like 1900s, and it's just a skills craftsman just taking the giant spatula and poking the pizza. Like, he's developed a skill. You don't think the pizza guy, but the pizza guy is communicating something. He's like, this is a skill that I learned from my father, that he learned from his father. This is how we make beautiful and good pizza. But I mean, think of all the DIY shows. You're just watching people that have skills, and you're like, man, I wish. It's because God has gifted you to want to do something.
We went to frozen tombstone pizza, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that reminds when I was in the coffee business, we had a set of diners, and of course, they went the way of many diners where they had to close up shop because of again, McDonald's and everyone else. Because I can go to McDonald's and get a burger for $1.50. Why would I go to a diner and spend $4 or $5? But I remember going there to get our coffee equipment, and I'm looking at his griddles, and some of them were the thick steel top was actually scalloped from all the years of cleaning that griddle top.
Someone eating metal. Little bits at a time.
That's how we got our minerals there. But no, you think about that. Just the juxtaposition of God's ways of beauty, of nature and things like this. Gene, when you're talking about abortion, I'm just thinking about the scripture that as John related to, that were his craftsmanship, right? His masterpiece. Yet the world wants to call it a parasite that's inside a woman. And
he knitted us together while we were in her womb.
Right.
Right.
But in the world's view, that's a parasite that's sucking the life from this woman and should be ripped out.
Yeah, and then once we're born, we're a parasite consuming the earth,
right,
and damaging the earth.
Yeah,
so
Mother
that's
Earth.
another worship of the planet.
Right, right, and not to, and I'm not a tree hugger or anything like that, but when we do look at the consumerism, we look at the packaging, right? We have issues with, trash dumps and things like that, because we're so overpackaged, right? Because we're not going down to the butcher and getting this piece of meat that was cut that morning or the day before. No, we're getting things that are in plastic that's inside another thing of plastic that's in another package, and now we have to deal with all this packaging.
Yeah, the stuff's not natural, so it's not biodegradable.
It's not going anywhere. Yeah. So we see these effects, especially long term. We've talked about eating cheap versus eating healthy, but then also eating cheap is the production of the overpackaging, which is overfilling the landfills and so on and so forth. Again, getting us dependent on government to come pick up our trash. Who's going to take care of my trash? I need this company to come pick up my trash. So there I am. I'm buying all this stuff that's packaged. Now all this packaging has to be taken somewhere. So now I need this company, maybe the government, depending where you live, can be part of the county you're in, to come take my stuff and take it away. So again, it's like one more area where we give up a little bit of freedom too, for the sake of either convenience or comfort. So
yeah. So we touched on a lot of we wrote some notes about some of the stuff we brought up in the last episode, and I think one that we might need to touch on, because I'm assuming that we've gone probably 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, we're 50 minutes right now.
50 minutes.
50
yeah.
minutes.
So why don't we wrap up with this one? I'm thinking is the idea of youth. You started talking about that or age, and the age segregation and youth and what that has done to our culture and also to church. And so what are some ways, because that's really ingrained in us now, what are some ways that we could kind of start breaking that down again and eliminate some of those effects of the evolutionary theory impact and the division of ages?
Yeah.
Just thinking, corporate worship shouldn't be divided. Worshiping as families. And again, don't take this conversation as though we're special interest group. So if you have you're a senior saint, you want to have a couple senior saints over, silver saints.
Look at that.
Silver saints.
Check them out.
Do I fall into that? I was pretty silver.
But have them over, you know what I mean?
2 years.
But no one's saying that the kids can't hang out with kids, but be more intentional about investing in other people. Have the younger people have older people over, married have the singles have, your Titus really paints this picture that you're to do life together and across all stages, and that you're to be teaching one another and learning something from one another and sharing your wisdom. Number of parents need the wisdom of our silver saints to be like, oh yeah, your situation looks different, but here's the spiritual issue that's at play in your child. Here's how we rode this out. Here's how we navigated this. So one of the things that you can do is just worship corporately together. And just because I think that really helps the church to see oh my gosh, there's a brother or sister over there just starting out. Or there's this couple that's finishing well. Yeah. And it just does something to you when you can see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially families with their children. Your children need to see you praying. Your children need to see you singing. Your children need to see you sitting there, listening, taking notes.
Yeah.
Right? Take example from that. One thing that this just kind of I thought about right now, especially if you're out there and you're listening to this, you're a younger person, you have an opportunity right now that year by year is disappearing because of a generation that is disappearing. That we still have people that have lived through some incredible experiences. If it was Vietnam, if it was some things like this, that they're going away, and that wisdom is going away. And unfortunately, we're not cultivating quite the same wisdom right now. I would rather sit and talk to someone who went through, we see this in counseling. I've seen it with younger people that they lack a broad perspective of history. They have access to greater amounts of information, but they don't have kind of the proper filter to take it through. So when things were happening with Russia and Ukraine, right? Kids were seeing this stuff and oh my goodness, this is going to be this big thing. It's well, relax. Okay. Mm-hmm. We've seen wars before. We've even gone through bigger things that look like it could have went far worse than what it did. And these are things that wisdom gives you, is a perspective on world events when you see them happen, that kids don't have, but now they have access to knowing these things because of social media, right? They see these events and it's oh my goodness, did you see what happened over here? It's it's all right. It's going to be okay. And we have a generation, though, that has lived through Cuban Missile Crisis, that has lived through, again, Vietnam, Korea, and various other hardships that we can learn from, that young people should really sit under and learn from how they went through this. All right. You want to talk about, racial issues. We have people that lived through, the high schools, the integrations,
segregation,
and things. Like that. All those kind of things. And unfortunately, it's not to sound mean, but those generations are dying off, and we're never going to have that again. And we're not going to have that opportunity. Do you want to sit down? Who would you rather sit down at the feet of? This person who made it through Korea and this, or someone talking about, I remember the pandemic of 2020. That was a tough one, right? Like, so it's almost like before when we talked about hard times making hard men and those kind of things.
Yeah.
A lot of these people that lived through these hard times are going away. And our younger people are missing that opportunity to learn from their wisdom and to kind of soak that in.
Yeah, the great verse is Proverbs 16:31. It says, Gray hair is a glorious crown, and it is found in the ways of righteousness.
Yeah.
And so even as a church culture, to value that getting older is not something to be feared, it's something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
That's what corporate worship is supposed to do. We're supposed to be valuing, showing what we value, what we love, what we want to emulate so that you can take it into your home and start practicing it. There's just such a huge emphasis, as we've talked about earlier, just on youth. When the pastor gets to a certain age, he has to retire because we want the next youthful guy to keep things going, rather than the guys that are constant and steady, that you can be like, man, that dude, to your point, has seen some stuff. He's lived through some stuff. Yeah. He can help me navigate stuff in my own life, rather than just like, all right, he's old, get him out.
Yeah.
Get the next talented guy up there and just churning and churning.
You look at someone like MacArthur, right? He's been doing this for, 50 years?
Yeah.
He's in his 80s now. Man,
the stuff he's seen and preached through.
He's preached through all of it.
I'm thinking of like Doug Wilson. I think of like Tom Askell down in Florida. Like these are guys that are John Piper, guys that are probably going to, Lord willing, die in the pulpit. That's what they want. They want to finish well in the pulpit.
Yeah.
And then the next guy will step in and be like, I need double portion of the Lord's Spirit to even do half of what he did.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that too. We've kind of touched on this. I don't want to belabor this point, but worship as far as music, right? A lot of it is, let's follow the new thing. Let's follow these new trends. Let's have the latest and best of this and that. Hymns are like hymns. What is that? That old fogey stuff, hymns. But those hymns have been there. Those have stood the test of time as well. Not to mention the Psalms.
Yeah, a great album that I'm listening to right now on my Spotify is Brian Sauvé, Even the Dragons Will Praise Him. And he sings the Psalms.
And
it's all set to like, you can get the guitar in there, you can get the banjo, you can get whatever you want, the drums, all your modern stuff. But man, when you hear him sing the Psalms and you're like, man, the Psalms are the songbook of the church. And when it roots it into you and you're like, man, I can relate to this. This will steady and make me constant and consistent, man. That just does something to you, rather than an earlier episode where you can't even tell, is this a pop song or is this a church song, or am I riding my emotions? I need to be steadied. And that's what the old ways are about. It's about steadying you and tying you and realize, because with youth, there's the emphasis on now. We talked about 1984, everything being judged by now. That's the wrong standard. Like, the old ways root you in a time and a place, and you know where you are, you know where your time is, and how you're tied to something greater, because that's what our culture wants. You're hearing the youth, like, we want to have movements and see revivals and do all this stuff, but yet if you can just find your place in God's design and his story, man, you're set, you're good, if that makes any sense.
No, I think that really is some good advice there.
I just wanted to say one other thing about church, because I'm sorry, you were he did it. I did it again.
Stepping on the outro.
Stepping on the outro.
No, well, because this thing is about the children's church or something like that, right?
Youth ministry.
Youth ministry. So, right. I mean, this is like, there could be a place for when we call some children's ministry of some sort, maybe up to a certain age, right?
Used to be called Sunday school,
right? Yeah. So we're not saying that you have to abolish that altogether, but then when you start adding on to where you have the young from the time they're babies until they're 20 years old, practically, in a different church, so to speak. Like that, there's no, like, I don't know what the right age is. And ideally from the time they're babies, they need to learn how to be respectful, how to be quiet, how to, like you brought up about seeing their parents, right? Ideally, we want to do it young, but I could forgive, terrible twos or whatever, and somebody's watching the young ones. But you've got 12-year-olds and stuff.
Yeah.
They should be in the regular church service.
Yeah.
There's absolutely, in my opinion, no reason.
Yeah,
so if you're an adult with these age children, that's one thing you should do.
Yeah.
Bring them into the church service.
My 10-year-old worships with us.
Yeah.
My 6 and 5-year-old, or soon to be 5-year-old, worship with us. Now they get dismissed halfway through the service, the younger kids. But my 10-year-old, because he gets like a Sunday school hour, and then he's there through the whole worship. And we're parenting awesome. In the pew, which is, I know, is inconsiderate, or not inconsiderate, but can be a hassle sometimes if you're focused on yourself. But that's the way you train up your child. That's the way you do Deuteronomy 6. The worship service isn't about meeting your felt needs. It's about teaching you how to live godly.
Yeah. And that's, I think, something that he pointed out in this book. This was Christopher Schlecht, Critique of Modern Youth Ministry, was the perspective used to be these were little adults, right? It's not just kids, but these are little, soon to be.
Think about how
they were expected to act.
That's my little man.
They were learning how to do
my
it.
little woman. Like that's how the kids were referred to. Like you were teaching them, hey, growing up is something to be sought after.
Yeah,
not just like, all right, stay in immaturity forever.
Yeah.
All right. No, I see. I just got one last point.
Okay.
I just got one last point.
Right.
I want to do, not so we're experts, but just a personal story. When we began the homeschooling thing about in the fall, our lives have completely changed because we took that one tangible step. Going back to earlier, not knowing where to go, and seeing my wife now. We're doing canning. She made her own mayo recently.
Yes. Amen.
Nice.
I'm thinking through I have my own job from 8 to 4, thinking through side businesses, things like that, taking advantage, like DoorDash, because I can do DoorDash on my way home, but that gets me started. That's an extra source of income, thinking about how things that I do well, like cleaning cars, vacuuming out cars, mowing lawns. Like those are things that tangible things that you can do that will get you on that path of becoming a craftsman and thinking through all right, what can I excel at? What can I really do well? And not seeking after comfort, which is what a lot of us like to do. We just want the quick and easy so we can spend the rest of our days just in the sofa or doing nothing. That's even how we parent, but that's a whole nother episode. But tangible steps, because I don't want everybody think that we're always pointing out what's wrong. Like we are in our own lives practicing these things. So be encouraged by that.
All right,
yeah, awesome.
Very good. That's what talk to this guy about investing and
yeah,
you can maybe be a slumlord like him.
I want to say more, but creating multiple sources of income, especially sources of income that don't depend on your time anymore. That can be huge.
Okay, so I can go to the outro now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're done. They're tired of listening.
It's not going to be as smooth as it normally is when I just hop in and start talking. But, again, we're hoping that you're encouraged by this. We don't ever want to seem like we're coming across like we have it all together, or that everyone else is doing it all wrong. I know that it can be very overwhelming when you're looking at some things like this and you think, where do I start? But I think really what we're saying is look at things in your life and look at what is it that you can do to, first of all, have some of your own independence, to not have these big corporations or let alone the government have this kind of control over you, but also find something that is going to help you connect more with the things that really matter. Taking that time for, I'll use the term meditation, but those times where you put things aside, if it's some hobby, some little pastime, if it's woodworking, if it's fishing, if it's walking, something like that. I think that was a great suggestion. That's something most of us can do. Spend that time to focus on the Lord, your relationship, things that we should be doing. Take these things one step at a time and start to incorporate some of these into your life. But if it is cigars or pipes, hit us up. You can become a Brotherhood of the Leaf. Providence Men's Club is what that'll be. So again, we've got stuff to get you started. But no, seriously though, let us know if there's anything you want to hear from us, or suggestions, comments, concerns, anything like that. We thank you guys so much for being with us, listening to us jabber on here for an hour, and just hope that this is a blessing to you, and we will see you guys next time.